Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex topics, dive into the sources, and pull out the key stuff to get you up to speed fast. Today we're looking at something pretty serious. It's called capture myopathy. You might also hear it called exertional myopathy or exertional rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah, those are the terms.
So imagine an animal, maybe a deer or even a llama, getting some, routine handling.
Right.
And they get incredibly stressed, pushing themselves way beyond what's normal physically.
Right.
This isn't like an infection or anything.
No, not at all. It's non-infectious. Purely stress and exertion causing muscle damage.
And it can be lethal. It's a massive welfare issue. Actually, a main cause of death for animals like camels, llamas, alpacas.
The camelidae family. Yeah.
And also deer species, white-tailed deer, elk, moose.
The cervidae.
Definitely highly susceptible groups.
So our mission here is to really unpack the how and the why behind it and, uncover some surprising things about animal physiology and how much we play a role.
That's a key part. Because what's kind of counterintuitive, maybe, is that capture myopathy is often called iatrogenic.
Which basically means human-caused.
Exactly. These wild animals, prey animals, they're built for, short, intense bursts of escape.
Right, get away quick.
Not these long struggles against, nets or tranquilizer darts or being chased for ages. That difference is crucial.
It really is.
So let's dig in. What exactly is capture myopathy? Why is it such a big deal?
Well, fundamentally, it's a metabolic disease.
Yeah.
And often fatal, as you said. It's not caused by a pathogen like a bacteria or virus. Instead, you see severe damage, destruction, really, of skeletal muscle, the muscles for movement, and also the heart muscle.
The heart, too. Wow.
Yes, cardiac muscle is definitely affected. And the main trigger, like you mentioned, is that intense muscle activity combined with extreme stress. Things like being captured, handled, restrained, transported. It just pushes their muscles too far, causing the cells to break down.
And that iatrogenic or human-caused part you mentioned.
Yeah, it's important to contrast it with, say, escaping a wolf or a lion.
Right.
That's usually a short, explosive chase. If they get away, the stressor is gone relatively quickly.
Okay.
But with human interaction, a long chase, getting tangled in a fence, struggling during handling the exertion, and the stress can go on for much, much longer. It leads to a kind of physiological overload they just aren't adapted for.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, extreme stress, massive exertion. How does that lead to catastrophic damage, even death? It sounds like a terrible domino effect.
It absolutely is a cascade, a devastating one. It really kicks off the second the animal perceives a threat. That fear.
Yeah.
It triggers this huge dump of adrenaline. The sympathetic nervous system, the adrenal glands, they go into overdrive. It's that extreme fight or flight response.
Okay, full panic mode.
Exactly. And then comes the intense physical struggle. And here's the crucial physiological shift. When that exertion is really intense and prolonged, their muscles start to run out of available oxygen. So they're forced to switch metabolic gears. They go from aerobic metabolism using oxygen, which is efficient, to anaerobic metabolism, generating energy without oxygen.
Right, like sprinting flat out.
Sort of, but the problem is this anaerobic process has a nasty byproduct.
Yeah.
Lactic acid. And it produces it very, very quickly. This lactic acid floods the system, builds up rapidly in the muscles and blood, causing the body's overall pH to plummet. That's what we call metabolic acidosis. And it's dangerous.
So it's like their whole system becomes acidic. That sounds bad.
It's very bad because that acidosis directly messes with heart function. The heart muscle can't contract properly, so it pumps blood less effectively.
Oh, wow.
This leads to poor circulation throughout the body, which means less oxygen hypoxia getting delivered to the muscles that are already working overtime and to vital organs.
A vicious cycle.
Exactly. Without enough oxygen, the muscle cells start to die off. This process is called rhabdomyolysis muscle breakdown. And as these muscle cells rupture and die, they release their contents into the bloodstream, including huge amounts of a protein called myoglobin.
Myoglobin, I've heard of that. Isn't that what carries oxygen in muscle?
It is, but in large quantities floating free in the blood, it's highly toxic to the kidneys.
Wow.
The kidneys just get overwhelmed trying to filter it all out. They can't cope, and you end up with acute kidney failure.
Good grief.
So that whole terrible chain reaction, the acidosis, the failing heart, the muscle death, the kidney failure, that's what ultimately kills the animal. And death can be hyperacute, like right there during the event from shock and cardiac arrest. Or it can be delayed, sometimes hours, days, even weeks later as the organ damage progresses and eventually leads to failure.
That's, a truly brutal sequence of events.
Yeah.
So, okay, we understand the mechanism generally. Where does this hit hardest?
Yeah.
Let's talk about camelids, llamas, alpacas, animals some listeners might even own.
Right. Camelids are an interesting case. Even though many are domesticated, like llamas and alpacas, they absolutely retain those deep-seated prey animal instincts. Dromedary camels, too, they're also susceptible.
So they still react strongly to threats.
Oh, absolutely. Spitting, kicking, trying to bolt. All that physical effort and the accompanying stress is exactly what can set off the capture myopathy cascade.
Okay, so what signs should someone look out for in, say, a llama or alpaca?
Early on, you'd see really rapid heart and breathing rates, panting, and a very high body temperature. We call that hyperthermia. And it can get dangerously high, maybe over 42 Celsius, which is what, 107, 108 Fahrenheit? Really critical levels.
Wow, that's extreme heat.
It is. Then, as things progress, you'd notice muscle stiffness, maybe visible tremors or shaking, weakness, stumbling. They might seem reluctant to move at all, and often they'll just lie down and be unable to get back up. That's called recumbency.
And you mentioned something about urine.
Yes, that's a really grave sign. Dark, reddish-brown urine. That's the myoglobin we talked about, spilling into the urine myoglobinuria. It's a direct visual indicator of severe muscle breakdown. It means the kidneys are already under immense strain. Seeing that, well, it often means death is likely.
That's chilling. How is it diagnosed then, besides seeing these awful signs?
Well, observation after a stressful event is key, but blood tests are crucial. Vets will look for sky-high levels of muscle enzymes like CK and AST. Also, high potassium levels, hyperkalemia from the damaged cells, evidence of acidosis, high lactate levels.
Okay.
Urinalysis confirms the myoglobin. And then sadly, post-mortem examination, necropsy shows the damage very clearly pale or even hemorrhagic muscles, evidence of cell death and obvious kidney damage.
Are there other things it could be mistaken for?
Good question. Yes, you need to rule out things like nutritional muscular dystrophy, which is often linked to vitamin E and selenium deficiency. Or sometimes certain plant toxins can cause atypical myopathy, like from sycamore maple seeds. So getting a really thorough history of what happened leading up to the signs is absolutely critical.
Right, context is everything.
Okay.
That gives us a clear picture for camelids. What about cervids? Deer, elk, moose,
Yeah.
animals built for speed and flight.
Yeah, their whole physiology is geared towards that explosive short escape, which ironically makes them incredibly vulnerable to the prolonged stress and struggle humans can inflict.
So they burn out faster, essentially.
In a way, yes. They aren't built for endurance struggles. White-tailed deer, elk, moose, pronghorn, they're all known to be very, very susceptible. It's also interesting there seem to be differences even within the deer family. Fallow deer and roe deer are often considered more prone than red deer or sika deer, for instance.
Huh. Why is that, do we know?
The exact reasons aren't always perfectly clear, likely subtle physiological differences, maybe behavioral responses too. But what's really important to understand with these ungulates, these hoofed animals, is that capture myopathy doesn't always look the same. It often gets classified into 4 clinical syndromes, and they can be quite different.
Okay, 4 types. Let's break those down.
Right. First, there's what's called capture shock syndrome. This is the hyperacute form. We're talking sudden death. It happens either right during the capture event or within just a few hours. You see signs of profound shock, super rapid breathing and heart rate, the hyperthermia we mentioned, and then collapse from circulatory failure. It's very sudden.
Awful. Okay, what's next?
Second is the ataxic myoglobinuric syndrome. The name gives clues. Ataxic means uncoordinated. Here, the signs pop up maybe hours or even a few days after the capture event. The animal shows muscle weakness, stiffness, that lack of coordination ataxia, and crucially, they have that dark myoglobin-stained urine.
The myoglobinuria again.
Exactly. And in these cases, death often comes from the progressive kidney failure.
Okay, 2 down. What's the third?
The third one is ruptured muscle syndrome. This typically shows up about 24 to 48 hours after capture. What's tricky here is the animal might seem okay initially, maybe a bit stiff, but then suddenly a major muscle group tears or ruptures. Often it's the big gastrocnemius muscle in the hind leg.
Oh, like the calf muscle.
Pretty much, yeah. And that leads to severe lameness, inability to bear weight, inability to stand. It's catastrophic for the animal.
Definitely. And the 4th type?
The fourth is called delayed paracute syndrome, or sometimes chronic debility. This one is maybe the most insidious. An animal survives the initial capture, seems to recover maybe over days or even weeks,
Right.
but then dies suddenly. Often it's triggered by a second, maybe even seemingly minor stressful event.
Why? What's happening there?
The thinking is that the original capture myopathy event caused significant damage and scarring to the heart muscle. So the heart is weakened, compromised. Then that next little bit of stress is enough to push it over the edge into fatal heart failure.
Wow. So the damage lingers, even if they look okay.
Exactly. It's a hidden vulnerability.
This is all, well, it's incredibly grim. Given how devastating this is and the different ways it presents, it sounds like treatment must be really difficult. Is there anything that can be done once this cascade starts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, the prognosis, once significant signs appear, is generally very poor, extremely poor. Treatment is rarely successful. It requires incredibly intensive, aggressive supportive care, often in a hospital setting, and even then the outcomes are often just not good.
So prevention is really paramount then.
Overwhelmingly so. Prevention is the cornerstone. It's the only truly effective approach. If you do find yourself in a situation attempting treatment, the immediate goals are basically damage control. You have to remove the stressor immediately, get the animal somewhere quiet, calm, correct that metabolic acidosis, support the failing organs. Cooling measures are vital if they're hyperthermic, damp cloths, fans, shade. Aggressive Vivi fluids are absolutely critical. You need to push fluids to help correct the acidosis, maintain hydration, and try desperately to flush the kidneys to minimize damage from the myoglobin.
Like trying to dilute the toxin.
Essentially, yes, and support kidney function. Medications might include NSAIDs for pain and inflammation, maybe tranquilizers or sedatives, very carefully chosen to reduce anxiety without lowering blood pressure too much. Supplemental oxygen might help. Sodium bicarbonate can be given intravenously to directly counteract the acidosis. Muscle relaxants sometimes.
What about vitamin E and selenium? You mentioned deficiency earlier. Does supplementing help here?
That's often discussed because they play roles in muscle health and antioxidant defense. But frankly, the evidence for their effectiveness in treating acute capture myopathy is pretty unclear. It likely doesn't hurt, but it's probably not a magic bullet once the cascade is underway.
Right. So it sounds like heroic efforts with low chances of success.
That's a fair summary. Supportive care, managing electrolytes, maybe very controlled, gentle movement if possible later on. Constant monitoring, it's all part of it, but yeah.
So let's pivot hard to prevention. If that's the only real answer, what does it look like?
It looks like meticulous planning and a fundamental commitment to low-stress handling from absolutely everyone involved. Anyone handling these susceptible species has an ethical duty here.
Okay, what are the key principles?
Minimize the stress duration. That means pursuit time needs to be incredibly short, ideally less than 5 or 10 minutes. Keep it brief. And once the animal is captured, all procedures, tagging, sampling, whatever needs doing must be done super efficiently. Get in, get done, get out. Minimize handling time.
Reduce the sensory overload.
Absolutely. Blindfolding the animal once captured can make a huge difference. Minimizing loud noises, sudden movements, keep the environment calm. Choosing the right capture method is vital too. Whenever possible, remote chemical immobilization darting or well-designed traps are generally much preferred over long, stressful chases.
Makes sense. What about temperature? You mentioned hyperthermia.
Crucial factor. Avoid capture activities altogether during the hottest parts of the day or in hot weather seasons if possible. Always monitor the animal's body temperature during handling. And have cooling measures, ready water, damp cloths, shade, good ventilation, especially during transport.
Acclimatization.
Yes. If animals are being moved to a new place, allow them time to gradually adjust before any further handling. Let them settle. Ensuring they have access to water for hydration is important too. And as mentioned with treatment items, judicious use of appropriate sedatives or tranquilizers before or during capture and transport can significantly reduce that initial fear and stress response.
It really sounds like every single step needs careful thought.
It does. Every single detail matters in preventing this.
Okay, this has been incredibly eye-opening and sobering. The critical takeaway seems unavoidable. Capture myopathy is severe, is often triggered by our actions, and prevention isn't just the best approach, it's really the only ethical and effective one. Understanding that whole physiological chain reaction, the fear, the acidosis, the muscle breakdown, organ failure, and knowing which animals, like camelids and cervids, are particularly vulnerable It really puts the responsibility squarely on us.
It really does. And this isn't just an academic understanding. It's an ethical obligation for vets, wildlife managers, researchers, zoo staff, farmers, anyone interacting with these animals. Think about the implications. High mortality from CM directly impacts conservative efforts, like moving animals to establish new populations. It affects welfare in zoos, on farms, everywhere. So truly internalizing this need for careful planning, using low-stress techniques, respecting the animal's physiological limits, that's how we reduce the risk.
It really drives home the impact we can have, for better or worse. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. We've just explored in detail how profound stress impacts animal physiology, those metabolic shifts, the cascade of effects, the difference between a natural predator escape and a prolonged human-induced struggle. How might really grasping this challenge our own practices, maybe even beyond animal handling? How can this knowledge about physiological limits under stress inform how we create environments for humans too that genuinely support well-being and respect those limits?